Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Ticker Symbol Live, our daily analysis of ARK Invest holdings so that we can see how they're investing in our future today. Today is going to be a very quick but exciting episode because we're going to be talking about Zillow. Zillow is the number one solution for buying a house online right now. It's been the number one solution for searching for a house online for a long time now. And funny story, I'm actually closing on a condo right after this episode. So talk about serendipity. That's total coincidence. Zillow is their biggest purchase from yesterday, ARK Invests, and my closing day just happens to be today. So let's go right to the ARK reactor and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the ARK reactor. I have everything organized in terms of percent shares changed. So as you can see, Zillow, their number one biggest purchase from yesterday, an increase of 7% in their overall position. Zillow is ARK Invest's fifth biggest holding overall. It's the fifth biggest holding in ARKK, the ninth biggest holding in ARKW, and the fourth biggest holding in ARKF. And combined, they have just over $1.25 billion with a B in Zillow. Really quickly, you can see from the heat map down here, again, not supposed to be able to read it, just looking at the colors, and you can see that it's pretty tan, meaning no big buys or sells from yesterday. This big red square right here is just cash. They've been spending some of their cash, and they have a few outsized little buys by percentage, but there weren't meaningful changes in ranks. So I checked all the data beforehand, and we can scroll down and down the list and see 0.09% changes, 0% changes, negative 0.1% changes, and then the only things that they've been meaningfully spending is cash, right? This position right here is Roku, a measly 2% drop. I just want to cover that because I've been getting a lot of questions about how I decide what to talk about each day. So what I do is I look at this table of all of their holdings across all of their funds, and I try to pick the biggest outsized buy or the biggest outsized sell to talk about. Today, it's Zillow Group, ticker symbol Z. So let's talk about it. Let me share the investor presentation here. And let's talk about Zillow. Zillow's goal is to give people the power to unlock life's next chapter. They are a digitally enabled home buying and home searching company. The big thing I want to talk about in general is this trend of e-commerce, right? Expectations are low friction and high transactability, right? Consumers are demanding streamlined, tech-enabled shopping experiences, and real estate is the next frontier, right? So when we think about shopping online, we're thinking about low-cost, high-frequency shopping. Think Amazon, think Uber, think your subscriptions like Netflix, and so on, right? Then you can think about things like Airbnb, or maybe all of your groceries, or your bigger bills or your bigger expenses, but still paying them online, booking an entire trip online, right? Booking an experience online, going to a theme park without touring it first, etc. You can buy a car online, right? And that's what Carvana is really good at and Carvana's competitors. And now we're talking about buying an entire house, which for many people is one of the biggest purchases you will ever make, fully online, right? So that's the point here that I want to really emphasize. Zillow is enabling the entire transaction online. If you've ever bought a house or a condo or any major asset, you'll know that it's pretty complicated. You do research, you shop, you try to select, you inspect, you have to finance it, get it appraised, and then you close, and then you move. And the reason for all these loops is because at any point you could go back and start the process over or go back to a previous step. For example, you can find a house you like, and then when you go see it, decide you don't like it anymore. You can go for financing and then decide the financing options aren't to your liking, and then go back to selecting different houses, right? This actually happened to me when I moved to Florida. I did my initial transaction through Zillow. I got hooked up with somebody who is now one of my very close friends who helped me find a house. But the house I flew down from New York to Florida to go see was actually not the house I ended up purchasing. I ended up purchasing a completely different house during my trip here. And all of that was facilitated and enabled by being able to search for houses that meet my criteria through Zillow specifically, right? So I'm still talking about using Zillow to facilitate this, one of the largest financial transactions of my life, right? So this was a multi-step process for me specifically, right? I went through all these crazy little loops over and over again. And eventually that resulted in a home purchase, right? So the value that Zillow tries to add is it takes all these independent steps and it streamlines them for the end user. It has service providers at each of these steps and lets you get through that chain with low friction and in a streamlined way because it's digitally enabled, right? We can go down and down the list, but this is the thing this is the slide that really stuck out to me in this investor presentation. So they have two flywheels going. The original Zillow, if you remember, is all about searching, finding, and then connecting to an agent. So as a refresher, here's what Zillow actually looks like. And what you can do is you can set a bunch of criteria. I'm looking in New York. I'm only going to look at $900,000 to $2 million homes. I obviously can't afford those in real life. And what that does is it will filter down my searches geographically down to that criteria, right? If I want to select any number of bedrooms and bathrooms, it'll further refine the list. And so I can search different areas by dragging the menu, and the most relevant results will show up in each area. And this is sort of that first step of the cycle when you're just checking out real estate that you might be interested in purchasing in the area you might be purchasing in, right? So very intuitive interface, digitally enabling something that used to be a very intense physical process, literally going neighborhood to neighborhood and trying to find houses and open houses and real estate to tour, connecting to different agents, area by area, depending on who's managing what areas. Now you're doing this all in a digital way. And of course, this Zillow has been around for a while, right? But just showing you what this is, people are calling out Redfin and other good competitors. Absolutely. The online mapping space has been truly transformed due to, the information era. And there are other services like Zillow. But I would say that Zillow is kind of like the Google of real estate. It has the name recognition. People often use Zillow as a verb. For example, I'm going to go Zillow that house. People look at that Zestimate as a real estimate of the value of a house and so on. So Zillow has some brand recognition in the space. Great. Let's go back to this investor presentation, right? So that was Zillow 1.0, right? Zillow 2.0 is actually about facilitating the transaction, buying, selling, renting, and financing. And because they have the search, they're able to enable this two-pronged flywheel, right? This is how I like to think of it. Number one, gets people in because they're used to using Zillow to search for their real estate. And then as they decide on a house, or a condo or whatever your piece of real estate is, you can facilitate that entire transaction in the platform you already used to search for that house, right? And so one thing I want to call out is if you watched the Pinduoduo episode, you may recognize this type of flywheel, right? Forming connections and using engagement as one prong, and then the actual transactions on the other prong. So when we talked about Pinduoduo, I'll just mention real quick, it had that same sort of architecture. And this is the type of stuff that I'm trying to add value with episode over episode and connecting back to ticker symbol U, right? We're going to start noticing patterns in the types of things ARK holds. This flywheel of the transaction on the left here and user engagement on the right here is powerful because one drives the other, and that's true on both sides of the flywheel, right? So just like Pinduoduo uses transactions and engagement, we're seeing Zillow use transactions and engagement to drive growth and drive more customer lifetime value per user. That's the only thing I wanted to bring up Pinduoduo for. Hopefully you can see, and they're both in the same funds, right? So just calling out, they're both in ARKF and they're both in ARKW. And now we're starting to see a pattern emerge among these holdings, right? Great. So that's what Zillow does through their two flywheels. Search, find, and connect to live people that can help you facilitate that transaction and digitally enable pieces of that transaction itself. And so the way Zillow sees themselves is they're the fast lane of home buying, right? They're going to radically simplify the transaction, and they're aiming to save consumers substantial time, money, and stress by accelerating the frequency of real estate transactions. If the transaction is less stressful, and trust me, home buying is stressful. I can't wait to close on this thing today and just get this thing off my to-do list. It's been taking over my life for months. Home buying is stressful, so people try not to do it often. Moving is stressful, so people try not to do it often. It's a large personal transaction, right? So if we can reduce the friction of that transaction, people might be inclined to do it more often. That's what Zillow is saying here, right? By being able to pick your date, coordinate services, using a trusted brand, bundled savings, certainty of close, and facilitating easier moves, Zillow is opening a market hoping that more people buy more houses more often, right? And that obviously drives up customer lifetime value for their brand. And so they're getting into the data of how they decided to do that and approach that market opportunity. And then the thing I want to talk about and ask you and interact with you for the rest of this episode is this. Tell me if you would buy a house entirely online, including only getting a virtual tour. If not, what's the biggest purchase you think you would make without ever physically interacting with the product? And if so, is there a limit to that? Would you say, hey, I would do everything online, but I must see the house in person? Or tell me a little bit about the specifics of where your line is in terms of both transaction size and how much you're willing to do online, right? So tweet me at tickersymbolu or comment below if you would buy a house entirely online, and if not, what's the biggest purchase you would make entirely online? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I'll jump into the comments, and then the last thing I'll do is we'll play with Zillow a little bit more, and then I'll answer any questions you may have. Seeing a lot of good comments. Bought my house 10 years ago. I felt like the seller's agent was trying to sabotage the deal. She was horrible. Yeah, this is a stressful transaction, man. I totally feel you. I have had great transactions and interactions around home buying, and I've had terrible ones. One of the things that we haven't really talked about, but that Zillow is enabling, is they do a good job screening their agents. There's a rating system on Zillow associated with agents, and the more brand equity Zillow gets, the more agents want to be a part of that platform, and the more their reviews matter, right? So if that agent was on Zillow and you gave them a bad review after that transaction, Zillow might say, hey man, we don't want you on our platform anymore. You're costing us real money. And now, Zillow maintains this trust by screening out the people that aren't doing a good job on their side, facilitating the transaction. That's one of the positive things about review systems, right? Is anyone with bad reviews kind of gets weeded out over time. And then we can talk about the drawbacks of that as well. Genuine versus fake reviews, and how skewed or unfair the review system might be, and how that varies by location. Sure, there's a lot of issues with online as well, but this is one of the strong benefits for us as consumers. This is a great call out. Lots of engaging questions about competitors. There are many competitors on Zillow for sure. This is a hot market. Real estate prices are up year over year, 15% right now, and housing availability is down almost 33%. Let me say that again. Housing availability is down 33%, right? The price is up 15%, and houses that are on the market now are moving 40% faster, 40. That means if a house used to be on the market for 2 months, it's now on the market for almost 1. It's moving 15%, it's moving at a 15% higher price, twice as fast, right? And there's 40% less available. So it's an absolutely, 1/3 less available. So it's absolutely a seller's market right now. So Zillow's competition is heating up because they want a part of that action. It's a crazy market right now, obviously facilitated by the coronavirus, right? The more people are spending more time at home, the more your home starts to matter. If it's your workplace as well, if you're raising a family as well and you're stuck at home more with them, all of a sudden people are reinvesting in their home life, right? Big time. We saw that with Peloton. We're seeing that with Teladoc, enabling more doctor's visits from home. And now we're seeing it on purchasing the actual home itself. I won't spoil Friday's ticker symbol U video, but it's very relevant to what we're talking about right now. And all of those statistics will show up in that video to empower what I think is a very powerful argument for for a certain type of home. That's cool. It's a buyer's market in Boulder. I didn't realize that. In Tampa, where I'm at, it is completely a seller's market. Houses are going way, way fast, and they're going way, way above their appraised value here. So totally a seller's market. Multiple offers on the same house, same day, etc. With house prices going up, the worst part of the transaction is the fixed percentage you pay for the broker's commissions. They aren't earning that commission. Yeah, I both respect that and disagree with it. Selling and transacting a house is a tough gig, and the more expensive a house is, the more these guys are sweating facilitating that transaction for you, right? They only get paid for their successes. So I agree that housing prices going up lately is not because of the actual value of the house, but because of the demand. But in general, tying the fee to giving a percent fee to the broker strikes me as a good way to have their buy-in to want to facilitate a successful transaction. Flat fees, they're just going to chomp on the easy ones, and all of the hard real estate actions, nobody would go for them because you're getting paid the same amount for way more work. So I encourage you to remember that those people are real human beings too, trying to earn a living by facilitating what is the toughest transaction for many people in their entire life. Do you think reopening will quell real estate and Zillow? This is a great question, and probably the last one I'll answer on this live stream. I don't think so. I think just like we're seeing with Peloton, just like we're seeing with Amazon, just like we're seeing with Teladoc, now that we know of the convenience of purchasing something online and facilitating at least a majority of the transaction through Zillow, right? So if we go back to the Zillow charts here and we look at all of the pieces of the puzzle they actually facilitate, right? Renting, buying, financing, selling, and then, even going back further, inspecting, lending, appraising, the title and escrow, the insurance, and the moving, right? What I think will happen is more people will do more of these steps more often through Zillow and its competitors, but online, instead of having to piecemeal their own solution together. The value add here is having an integrated end-to-end solution for the whole home buying and moving transaction in one convenient one-stop shop, right? Which again started at the search. The key here is Zillow grabs you here. Zillow is grabbing you and you're like, I want to look around for a house. So you pop onto Zillow and you just do it. You click on a house you like, right? And then you can take a tour. Oh, they got you, right? As soon as you're taking an in-person or video tour, as soon as they have you here, why not keep going with the entire transaction through Zillow? It's so frictionless. It's already in front of you. It's already top of mind. And that's that brand equity that they're banking on here. Getting you in search and find, which is their original core value, and then keeping you through the rest of the transaction until you're like, wait a minute, I moved into this new place and I did it entirely through Zillow, right? So, going to be a short episode today just because I literally have to go close on a condo. So I'm pretty excited. I've had nothing but good experiences with Zillow. I think Zillow does have competitors. I see a lot of mentions of Redfin in the chat. I agree. But the housing market is a multi-trillion-dollar market. So let me just address that real quick. The housing market is gigantic. And just like in every other space we see, there's no need to pick the one winner because there's no such thing as the one winner. We're going to see that with Tesla, I guarantee it. We're going to see that with Teladoc, I guarantee it. We're going to see that with Square, I guarantee it. It's about choosing the 2 or 3 service providers that are the outsized winners, right? What we're trying to do is not pick the one winner. We're trying to avoid holding any losers, right? By the way, I need to throw this up here. None of that is financial advice. But in my opinion, we shouldn't be asking Zillow versus Redfin. We should be looking at who is the best, what are the best features of each, why are they not exactly the same, what makes them different, what makes each better, and if you can find a real core value differentiator in each of them, hold both. It's the same Microsoft Teams versus Slack argument. Microsoft is a company that does a million things, and Teams was just one component of that. Slack enables communication, but is a huge, integrated thing that integrates to every platform ever for work, which is why Salesforce, gobbled it up so that it could use that as a tool in an even bigger suite. And those two companies like barely overlap, right? They overlap in the software space, but people are going to keep using Microsoft products even if they have Slack and Salesforce, and people are going to be using Slack and Salesforce even if they're already on the Microsoft ecosystem. So there's no need to worry about things like, well, what about this one competitor? Yeah, it's the housing market. It's the biggest market on the planet. There's going to be competition. Competition is healthy. Competition drives innovation. And we're seeing that big time in the housing market, which is, by the way, literally the oldest market on the planet, right? As long as we've been, cultures and societies, as long as we've been able to, be non-migrating people, we've had houses. So people have been transacting around houses for almost all of human history, right? All of humans' non-nomadic history. So winner take most, I think we should start rephrasing that to winners take most, right? Winner takes most, changing to winners take most. That's the key here. So hopefully this has given you a taste of what Zillow is, why Zillow is ARK Invest's 5th biggest holding overall, and in the top 10 on 3 different of their funds: ARKK, their flagship fund; ARKW, their internet-enabled fund; and ARKF, their fintech fund. Zillow is in the top 10 of all 3. I've transacted through it multiple times myself. I love Zillow. Its competitors are great, I'm sure. I use Redfin a lot for their statistics. They have a great blog, and they talk a lot about like the actual housing data, so I love them for that. And I think Zillow will be one of the outsized winners in the future of real estate. So this is Ticker Symbol Live. My name is Alex, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you. Thanks for watching.